As I've been snowed in here in North Texas and we've been receiving rolling blackouts where we only have power for a little bit of time and then an extended period of time with no power, I've been trying to fill my time doing productive things, and one of the only good things about having this much free time is I have had a good chance to take a deeper look into why this A-Day in particular is going to be so important for the University of Alabama, and we have got to talk about it. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from y'all. Do you believe that we will see some separation in the position battles come A-Day? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no, and let me know why. I love interacting with y'all down in the comments and seeing what y'all are thinking. Guys, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification. That way you don't miss any of my content. If we're not in a snow out period like this, I usually do constant college football content, and now I'm just kind of trying to put together whatever I can as I can with the power. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and comment down below, because that stuff really goes a long ways in helping content creators like myself get picked up by the YouTube algorithm. With all that being said, let's talk about why this A-Day in particular is so important. And the first one is coaching. The University of Alabama just had a complete overhaul in the coaching department. With Steve Sarkisian gone, it's going to be very interesting to see the new wrinkles Bill O'Brien will put into this offense. Now, one thing I think is important to note is this offense isn't going to change a whole lot. Since Brian DeBall, the offense has been fairly similar. Each coordinator has thrown their own little twist onto it, but for the most part, there's been a lot of continuity in the general theory of the offense, and I expect that to be the same under Bill O'Brien. I'm just interested to see what his few wrinkles are going to be. And make no mistake, we're not going to be seeing a lot. There's no reason for him to dip into the bag of tricks and show all of college football what he can do, but at the same time, we'll get a general understanding of where he's going to go philosophy-wise with this offense. And now, just past that, you'll see the running backs in action, how the running back coach will affect this. The new offensive line coach, all the new coaches in action are going to be really pertinent to see where we're at come A-Day with all of these position battles. And my lord, there's a lot of them. Just on the offense alone, the Alabama Crimson Tide return 3 starters. Now, we can argue they return 5 if you want to count Chris Owens coming in for Landon Dickerson and Slade Bolden coming in for Jalen Waddle on those injuries. I'll give the benefit of the doubt that the Crimson Tide return 5 starters because especially Chris Owens is going to be an incredibly important starter returning, especially because of the games he got to play. Had he only played the first few games and then Landon Dickerson came in, I'd be more inclined to just say Slade Bolden is a returning starter. But given the fact that Chris Owens played in the biggest games of the year for the Alabama Crimson Tide and played very well, his experience is going to be especially key, especially given the fact that he will probably play the center position, and that's the quarterback of the offensive line. And when Alabama's already replacing a quarterback, it's going to be incredibly important. Remember, Tide fans, this is uncharted waters. Even for Alabama, a team that has made churning out players into the NFL look like an afterthought. A team that has made replacing those guys look like just an equal of an afterthought. But this year's a little bit different. Not only is it going to be back-to-back years where the Crimson Tide are going to lose 2 first-round wide receivers, the Crimson Tide are going to lose 3 guys that were in the top 5 of the Heisman voter, plus the Heisman winner. And even though they're going to replace that talent with unbelievable talent, it is going to be a different look. So Chris Owens, being the quarterback of the offensive line, in theory, if he continues at the center position, is going to be a big help to this Alabama offensive front because there's already going to be competition at the tackle and the guard spot. Now, there's a lot of depth on the offensive line that didn't start last year. We're talking Tommy Brown. And we're talking guys like Pierce Quick. The thing is, though, is it going to be interesting to see if those guys can hold off J.C. Latham, Tommy Brockermeyer, Ferguson, and James Brockermeyer. Now, James Brockermeyer, I expect to sit a year with Chris Owens coming back at the center position, like I said, so I fully expect James Brockermeyer to sit a year, but it's not because of lack of talent. My goodness, if the Crimson Tide needed a center, he could do it. He is that good. It's just, with all the additions coming in that will be new, that center is going to be a really important piece, and it's not like Chris Owens didn't do phenomenally in his time coming in. That is his spot. He has earned it, unless James is just undeniable, and he might be. But that tackle-guard combination is going to be incredibly important to watch because there is a scenario where both J.C. Latham and Tommy Brockermeyer are on the field at the exact same time. And that's not even the beginning of the position battles that we'll see on A-Day. We'll be watching as a quarterback battle goes down. Now, I made a video the other day, so I'm not going to spend long talking about this, but we will be able to see for the first time all of these quarterbacks on the same field taking reps. We will be able to pick apart their differences, their strengths, and I fully expect Bryce Young to separate himself in this competition, and it's not because Paul Tyson isn't good, it's not because Jalen Milroe isn't good. They're both phenomenal. I truly believe Bryce Young has a special skill set, and when he shows it, everyone will see why he was rated as high as he was. Remember, he's a top 10 recruit for the University of Alabama all time per 24/7 Sports, so I can't wait to see that competition. Another position battle on the offensive side that's going to be incredibly fun to watch is wide receiver X. Now, wide receiver X was Devontae Smith, and he's going to be moving on to the NFL. Now, wide receiver H is also moving on to the NFL, and Jalen Waddle. But the reason I'm not so much worried, and I'm not worried about the wide receiver X position, but the reason I'm not even going to talk about the wide receiver H position is because Slade Bolden returns. He has starting experience, and even behind Slade Bolden, you have JoJo Earle and Christian Leary, who is, I'm big on Slade Bolden. I made a film review on him, so y'all know I think that what he does skill set wise, he's a very smart player, and he's great at understanding defensive coverages, especially zone, and picking apart zone defenses by finding the open spots. That's incredibly important when you're bringing in an entirely new offensive system and an entirely new offensive theory behind that system. Now, the general X's and O's, as we said, will remain the same, but the gist is a receiver like that is just safe. Great on bailout routes, so he will get featured. You're not going to be able to keep Christian Leary and JoJo Earle off the field. They're entirely too talented. They will be getting a lot of reps. So that's why I don't mention that as much, but wide receiver X, Javon Baker is the guy for me that's going to really separate himself. And there is a lot of upside in this Alabama wide receiver room. Like I've been saying, 40% of the nation's top 10 wide receivers are at the University of Alabama. And Javon Baker is a guy that Tide fans have been hearing about for almost a year now. What amazing plays he's been making. Now, he didn't really get to see too much action this past year, and that's not because he's not talented. It's because Jalen Waddle, John Mechie, and Devontae Smith were balling out all year, and there's only so much football to go around. Now, this A-Day is going to be able to show off a lot of the Alabama wide receiver depth, and that's very important because this might be more of a committee in the wide receiver room this year for the Crimson Tide, and that's not a bad thing when you have all these guys. But Javon Baker, to me, will be the guy starting out at wide receiver X, unless Ajayi Hall, Ja'Cory Brooks, or Trayshawn Holden can catch him, and that's entirely possible. And guys, we haven't even began to look at the defensive side of the ball. Now, the defensive side of the ball, I'm not as worried about, but there is one position on the defensive side I'm incredibly intrigued about, and we'll get to that last. And guys, this is only going to be a very brief synopsis of what to look forward to on A-Day. As it approaches and gets closer, we will be taking deep dives into each position battle. On the defensive side, we have Barmore leaving on the defensive front. To me, this isn't as big of a loss as Barmore is. This is the most palpable of all of the losses because Alabama's theory on the defensive line has always been just violence by sheer depth, and they will continue that. Guys are coming up that are going to be great. Tim Smith, DJ Dale, not to mention incoming 5-star Damon Payne. So while Barmore leaves, it's just going to be another wave coming in and crashing into you that we will see the same thing Alabama has done along that defensive front continue to happen. No worry about that. The inside linebacker position is a little bit the same. With Dylan Moses going away, there's a few different scenarios that could play out. And if Alabama lands Henry To'oTo'o, I'm fairly certain he gets the job. But if they don't, they have depth behind that position that I'm really excited about. Guys like Jalen Moody, Ali Cajo. There's a lot of guys coming in, and that's not even to mention the freshmen. The inside linebacker position is going to be huge because I, for one, don't even know if they're going to move Christian Harrison to Dylan Moses' position or keep him there. That's really the biggest question there for me, is where does Christian Harris end up? And then let's go from there. But no matter where that ends up, I really like the depth behind Dylan Moses. Jalen Moody, to me, made a lot of really smart plays when he came in, and he looked like he was only concerned about his job, and that's something that Saban just constantly preaches, so I really enjoyed watching him. And my last one, the position battle I'm personally the most excited about this offseason is DB. And I say DB because I'm going to extend it past cornerback, and I'll explain. Aside from the obvious one of Patrick Surtain going to the NFL draft and needing to replace cornerback 1, I'm really, really intrigued because aside from having a slew of talented corners on the roster, Alabama brings in the number 1 corner in the nation, JaQuincy McKinstry, along with the number 2 JUCO corner in the nation, and personally, when I watch McKinstry, I just don't know how you're going to be able to keep him off the field. That kid is a freak. He is super, super technically sound. And the thing is he still has so much room to grow because of how he split so much time as wide receiver and DB, which isn't uncommon amongst high school DBs, but he is technically sound. He's going to be a problem in the SEC, and I think that he's going to be a guy that sees playing time very early. And even aside from that, there's so many scheme things you can do in the defensive secondary. My only thing is I want anything that gets Brian Branch and Malachi Moore on the field at the same exact time. Sign me up for that, because those two right there are absolute playmakers. And the reason why I say the DB instead of the cornerback position in particular is safety. I understand Daniel Wright comes back, but DeMarco Hellams looked really good in his mop-up duty for Daniel Wright in the back end of the season. And even aside from that, you have Terrion Arnold coming in, who everything I just said about JaQuincy McKinstry, carry over to Terrion Arnold. He is that good. He's a guy who will be vying for playing time year one. Bet on it. I'm not saying he'll get there. We'll be hearing about him, and I can't wait to see throughout the summer how that position battle goes. But you understand why. The defensive backfield right now for the Crimson Tide is about as exciting as I can remember it being, especially for a bunch of young guys being in it. This is an incredibly talented bunch, and my only hope is find a way to get Brian Branch and Malachi Moore on the field at the same time, and amazing things will happen. But I want to hear from y'all. We will be taking a deeper dive into each of these position battles individually as A-Day gets closer. But which battles are you most looking forward to? And do you believe that we will see some separation come A-Day in those battles? That's it, guys. If you're in the Texas area or if you're in the area affected by this freeze, stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you soon. That's it.